Hooper's cat. That's for Liberty. Just wanted to talk about nCoV2019 and prepping and what's going on with me and what's going on with Kitty and what we're doing about it, because it might be useful. But first, a public health warning.
I mean, nobody's really qualified to give medical advice in a YouTube video, because in order to give medical advice, somebody has to diagnose a condition first, right? You see what I'm saying? But if you're going to give out advice on how to survive a pandemic, you know, from a viral outbreak like the coronavirus, for example, you should at least be trained or have some medical training so that you have an idea what the hell you're talking about. These are all things that Hooper's cat suggested.
That was the Angry Canuck, an excellent channel, except when he's talking about healthcare and the government. We don't agree on that, but that's fine. But it's a fair point. How many videos have you seen on YouTube in the last 3 or 4 days from people who have no medical degrees, no nursing degrees, no social work degrees, have only ever been in a hospital as a patient, and actually have a fairly low IQ. They don't have intellectual jobs, they don't read books. What they're doing is they're data mining videos from other people, finding information with a preconceived idea and then transmitting that in the lens, some of them quite slickly and others not quite so slickly, and basically talking a load of garbage about something that's actually an SHTF, a real SHTF, and extremely important to be giving low volume, high impact information. What people are churning out and what a lot of people are consuming right now is high volume, low impact information. So I'm not really that big a fan of churning out videos on single topics because it's topical. This is an exception.
What do you want? Information. We want information. 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 You won't get it by hook or by crook. We will.
With our mobile screens and our TV screens and our newspapers, if you're old enough to buy a newspaper, inundated with these sort of imagery, it's no wonder people are running scared. People are nervous. Now there's always the reaction of, I don't care, it won't be anything, I don't care. Right? Total denial. It's a wonderful way to be. But if you're watching this video, you've either been very unlucky or you've kind of gotten interested in emergency preparedness. And if you're interested in emergency preparedness, something like a pandemic would not take you by surprise. Pandemics happen every 14 to 17 years. They have done for as long as humanity has been able to record such things. The last major one was not 2009. It's interesting they're calling that a pandemic. I think they're calling that a pandemic to actually limit the impact of this one when they label this a pandemic. But the last really major global pandemic of any impact that was media saturated was of course SARS in 2002-2003. And for those people who don't know, I'm a nurse, a registered nurse. I worked ICU during SARS. I worked in Toronto. I live in Toronto still. And I worked at Toronto General Hospital and in the Med-Surg ICU. And I nursed an awful lot of SARS patients, and I wore a lot of gear, and it was a very traumatic time for me. What made it particularly traumatic is my partner, Kitty, was working, as she still is, in the ICU of Sunnybrook. For those people who aren't aware of this, Sunnybrook ICU managed to spread the infection to a massive number of staff by a failure of basic safety protocol caused by medical staff who weren't present, issuing orders that the staff should have refused to do. So that's one of the things that, going into this, I thought, I'm not going to go into another SARS, if it isn't going to be another SARS, or could be better, could be worse, could be the same. Truth is, it's the 28th of January. People don't know.
病毒的传播力似乎有所增强，病毒的毒性和致病力 还需要有更多的临床资料，我们再加以分析。所以说，从现在看，疫情传播的速度比较快，对防控工作带来了一些挑战和压力。专家预判，现在疫情进入一个比较严重、复杂的时期。
So I went to work on nights last Thursday. My work currently has been for about a decade as a hospital administrator. Don't hate me, I work quite hard. I'm the only manager in a major teaching hospital that has hundreds of beds and multiple services. It has Canada's largest maternity hospital as part of it. My portfolio has no limits. I cover all departments in the absence of those department managers, and at night, for the 12 hours I work, there are no managers other than me. I do have an administrator on call by pager that I can talk to, and that's nice, and a lot of the services will actually call me and ask me to do stuff, and I will call them and ask them to do stuff. So it's a hidden managerial position, and it's actually very critical. The last time I called sick, I was replaced by 4 people, which always annoys me because, let's face it, most of them earn the same salary as I do.
The only real information that I have is that it spreads really fast. I'm not sure about what to say because I don't know what's really true or not.
We now know there is one presumed case of this new coronavirus in Canada. The patient was taken to Toronto Sunnybrook Hospital and is now in isolation. And health officials say, compared to the SARS outbreak, they were really well prepared for this case.
Some preppers online saw a minor flu outbreak in the middle of China and immediately decided it was the end of the world. Some saw this as a creation of Bill Gates, who was doing it for more profit. How much profit does Bill Gates need? Some saw it as the United Nations finally deciding to wipe out people to either get their guns or install Obama as president, etc., etc. Some people, and they're still doing this, are claiming this is a plague, not having the wit or the intelligence to realise that a plague is actually bacterial in origin and has somewhat different mechanism and certainly has a little different approach and treatment. Good luck to them treating a virus as a bacteria. Anyway, apart from those crazy people and the people who are cashing in by churning out video after video, which is increasing the volume of knowledge about this, but decreasing people's ability to deal with that knowledge, right? Apart from all those people with no skills at all, going online showing people how to put face masks on, they have no idea whatsoever because they've never actually put one on and walked into a SARS patient's room, or they haven't walked into an AIDS patient's room in 1986 without knowing what AIDS was and thinking that it was airborne and would strike all people like that. Yeah, a couple of incidents from my experience. So yeah, the vast overreaction, the vast hysteria that broke out from a lot of preppers and some aspects of the mainstream media, because fear sells, was absolutely diabolical. It did not help. However, what really didn't help was complacency. The health authorities were complacent. They got through SARS because SARS was different from this, and they felt this was SARS, and they felt it was going to be just fine. It could be sealed off and it could be controlled. But what's the difference between this and SARS? Well, the jury's still out, we still don't have hard data. What I'm going to tell you now is what the best data I can get looking at government channels, not Ontario government. They are still being fairly wishy-washy. What I can tell you is when I went to work last week on Thursday, it was complacency. When I left 4 nights later, the tactical team for the hospital's command structure was meeting daily, had broken into task force and were doing specific things to harden our facility in case of further infections. That makes sense to me. It's best to proactively deal with this stuff than retroactively deal with it. But if you're going to proactively deal with it, deal with reality, not your own fantasy, okay? We are getting what negative pressure beds we have ready to be used. When it broke out, a lot of them were not actually ready. When it broke out, a lot of nursing staff and volunteer staff who just work weekends or just work nights were not mask fitted. Mask fitting had been looked at as a personal responsibility. If you don't wear a mask and there's flu, you'll have to go home and get no pay was the objective. No, what they should have been told was if you don't have a mask, we're terminating you. Okay? Mask fitting is different for the flu compared to a pandemic that is killing people. I think people are going to be a little bit more proactive the next time this happens. But that begs the question, what the heck is nCoV2019 and why is it different from the other coronaviruses and different from SARS, which was also a coronavirus? Well, in fundamental ways, the world's much better. We were able to identify it very quickly. Okay, people are saying that's because it was a deliberate release by Bill Gates or the Chinese government or the UN or whoever. Interestingly, by the way, in China, they're blaming the Americans for it. There's crazy people everywhere. The fundamental difference, SARS was not infectious unless people were sick. You're sick, you're coughing, you've got high fever. You're identifiable, we can quarantine you. Super spreaders weren't that sick, or they became sick very quickly and they spread it to other people who were not infectious without symptoms. Now that's also arguable. I felt there was a subgroup of SARS that were infectious with low grade or no fever. That was just my personal opinion. But by around about the end of May, SARS was weakening. The virus itself was not transmitting or being as infectious as it had been done. The difference with this one is, as far as I can tell, and I'm trying to get my information and I'm still not forming a definitive opinion here, is that this is partially or fully airborne. Droplet for sure. Droplet means the virus hitches right on phlegm and moisture and comes spilling out of the lungs. So that's why they tell you to be 2 meters, just over 2 yards away from anybody. Wearing a face mask when you're nowhere near anybody and you're not stopping to talk to them is a waste of time, by the way. Not wearing an N95 that's fitted to your face is also a waste of time, by the way. But whatever makes you feel good. Right, that's a difference. This thing can spread much easier than SARS did through the air. Pretty much SARS, you had to be in their face, and you had to be in their face for a fair amount of time, and they had to be spewing at you. Or they had to be being ventilated with tubes being put down their lungs and pressure being pushed in. They're spewing it. So that's a major difference. This is going to spread a lot faster and a lot easier than SARS. We didn't know this, we weren't getting the right information. But the people in charge went with the safe information that they were hearing. They didn't go, maybe we're not hearing the full truth. Look at the spread count. Maybe we should expect this to be worse and plan for it. And if it isn't worse, we've had good experience. That's not what happened. They didn't. They sat down and were complacent. And from what I can tell, so were the Chinese authorities. The other major difference with this is that, like SARS, it seemed to kill the old and the weak and the vulnerable. It now looks very much like it did that initially because the old, the weak and the vulnerable were in the hospitals that people went to when they were very sick with this new virus. Now the virus is definitively outside of the hospitals and in the community, which SARS never was in Canada. It looks very much like it affects the young, and that was what you would expect from a pandemic like Spanish flu, Spanish influenza of 1918 to 1919, which altered a generation and killed more people in about 6 months than the First World War did in 4 years. So hysteria is not warranted. Thoughtful thought is warranted. The other thing with this is we don't know how infectious people are. We don't know how easily infectious it is. We know there is, but we don't know how much. We also weren't sure of the death rate. We were being quoted 3% by China. People are now quoting 20%. Truth is, nobody quite knows. It's absolute chaos over there. It's so chaotic over there, they've quarantined tens of millions of people in a desperate attempt to restrain it from spreading, which isn't going to work, as I'll explain in a bit. And the advice we're being given here, I think, isn't proactive enough for me or you as a prepper. And I will get into that as well after the next segment.
Another big difference from the SARS outbreak? There was no social media back then, stirring up more fear, and no Netflix. That's right, 2 days after we learned about the virus, Netflix launched this new series.
The next pandemic is going to start, and we just don't know where or how, but we know it will.
That's right, it's called Pandemic: How to Prevent an Outbreak. And in China, check this out, the top trending app is now Plague Inc., a video game about a massive pandemic that kills half of humanity. So yeah, they're games, they're TV shows, but it all adds to the fear factor. And while government officials here are telling us to keep calm, if you go online, some of the images from China are downright scary.
There's a fascination with numbers. 3,000, 4,000 infected in China. Maybe it's 100,000. Maybe it's 2 million. Maybe it's 5 million. Nobody actually knows right now. It's a total, absolute disaster over there. What we do know is they're doing everything reasonably possible to shut down human-to-human transmission, i.e. stop people moving around. That's a smart response.
Official numbers to date suggest the coronavirus has infected close to 2,000 people and killed 56, most of those in China. But there are now confirmed cases in many other countries too, as far apart as Australia, France, the United States, and now of course Canada.
Now you're a prepper. Be smart. Don't wait for the government to tell you to shut down travelling around and going from human to human response. You shouldn't. You should be ahead of this one. If you're not really prepared, are you? Okay, why am I recommending you shut down? I've been saying it for about 2 days now. It's apparent to me that if you can, you shouldn't blah blah blah. No, I'm saying shut down, lock down today. If you don't have adequate food supplies, if you don't have enough gasoline, today's the day to go and get it. Go to the malls, you don't need to wear a mask as long as you're not in heavy crowded malls. Go to grocery stores that are almost empty now and stock up stuff for about a month to 2 months. Or 3 months if you can afford it and you don't have stuff in place. Make sure that you can reasonably have enough medications that you need, that you have to ration them, that will last you for 1 to 2 to 3 months.
There's this unverified video apparently posted by a nurse in Wuhan, allegedly shows bodies lining a hospital hallway. There's these videos showing patients being wheeled through an airport in a sealed off cage, allegedly quarantined because of the virus. Again, we haven't been able to verify these videos.
And of course that's the major problem. You can't verify the information you're getting. You can't verify what somebody tells you. When somebody tells you online that the United States Army recommends biological decontamination by having a bleach bath 3 times a week, how useful is that information to you? It's totally useless to you in this particular environment. See, the thing is, if you close habit on, you might be inhaling it. It's once you inhale it. There's also people online telling you that you can get flu through cuts and scratches on your skin. You can't. Pneumonic viruses, you have to. Pneumonia, lungs, you have to breathe them in. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's one of the big things, a lot of stuff that you can't verify. What you need to do is, and you're going to hate this, trust the government. But remember, the government is not looking ahead as a prepper does. So what do I recommend? You don't send your children to school, you don't send them to the playgroup, you don't let them go to the mall, you don't go to the mall, you don't go to work if you don't need to go to work, and you don't go to any parties, and you don't have anybody in your house, and you don't go to the movies. Shut down, lock down now, quarantine yourself now, whilst the infection might be spreading in your local environment without symptoms and caseload. If you keep wandering around and doing what you normally do, this week and next, and the virus is highly infectious during the non-symptomatic phase, you're putting yourself at massive risk. Even if you're in a tiny little village, like I was talking to the sister-in-law, she's in a small little village. She figured it's no risk. She should know better, she's a nurse. Hey, somebody went down to one of the major cities like Toronto or Ottawa, had their teeth cleaned by somebody who's been in direct contact with somebody with this virus, and you're there for half an hour to an hour having your teeth cleaned. Don't want to panic people, and I don't think there is a need to panic whatsoever. Worst case, if we lose 1 to 3% of the population over the next 6 months, this will be an event we will always remember for all of our lives. But society will recover and will actually go on and be quite fine. That's what happened in 1918 and 1919. This is not going to wipe everybody out. It would be good if it did, because the virus would self-regulate. You need healthy hosts to keep spreading. So if it comes quickly and massively disables everybody, it's not actually going to spread. This is a worst case. This is a slow dormancy period that has not many symptoms in most people, but when it does, it really disables people and kills them, but is infecting everybody for a long period of time without any warning to the person by temperature, pulse, or respiration, or x-ray.
My name is Ben Kavanagh. I live in Wuhan, and today I'm going to go to the shop. One mask, another mask. Apparently this mask actually doesn't do much, but 2 masks is always better than 1. Can't forget the most important thing, and the silliest thing. Got a big backpack, got a big suitcase, got my gloves. I'll wash these when I get home, just to be safe from all the stuff I'll touch on my way.
Well, I think the Irish consulate guy's got the best idea. The only problem I have with what he's doing is the outer garments he's wearing should be easily removable and put into a bucket of bleached water before hot boiling machine washing. But other than that, he's pretty much nailed what he needs to be doing, walking around a city with an airborne virus. There's strong correlation between airborne and eyeball transmission, and that's why the swim goggles are on. So I think that's a good thing to do to get ready for that. But this belies the point. If you have an airborne infection that's fairly infectious or very infectious, that doesn't kill most of its victims, but just 10, 3, 20%, and it is transmittable for 1 to 14 days before the person with it has symptoms, that means that right now in North America, right now in Europe, right now in Australia, we're experiencing what Wuhan experienced in the middle of December. Okay? So it's going to spread, and it's going to spread fast. It's going to be here now. My recommendation is that you lock down this week and next week. So you're a prepper, you've got food and water in the house, you've got money, you've got cash saved up. Use it now, this week and next. Maybe by the middle of next week, things are looking fine, go back to normal. But in a phased response, my phased response is lockdown. Now, that bears in mind the question. I had a big row with Kitty, and she has now cancelled her doctor's appointment for her routine checkup this week. She went ahead and had her teeth cleaned this morning because she has trouble getting appointments and my insurance is going to run out. I'm not happy she did that. She's still trying to decide whether to go to the movies tomorrow night with a friend of hers, which has been planned for 4 weeks. It's those sorts of normalcy bias. I look around me and I don't see anybody ill, I don't see anything going wrong. With an airborne virus like this, whilst it's passing amongst these people and infecting them, that's the critical phase to quarantine yourself, not when everybody's got it and it's obvious and blatant in your community. If you can quarantine yourself for a week or two before that, when you emerge and go on the streets are going to be empty. Everybody's going to be at home dead, or most of them will be at home terrified. Okay? So that's why I'm recommending at this point lockdown. There is human-to-human transmission in Canada. There is human-to-human transmission outside of China, and it is appearing to be airborne, and it appears to have a long infectious period without symptoms. How infectious it is the key question. We're not going to know until people start getting sick. Don't be one of the people that gets sick. So that's my message. Please feel free to argue with it. I would advise you to stop watching endless live streams of people babbling nonsense. It's really driving me to drink, and I'm going to enjoy myself. And Kitty is going to go to work on Sunday night, and I already decided I am going to work on Sunday night. Somebody has to go and work, right? But like I say, we have adequate personal protective equipment supplied by the government and the hospital, and we have our own reserve. That's a critical thing, because supply chains are going to get very stretched. Get N95s, know how to put them on, make sure they fit your face. I'm going to do a video on masks with a bunch of masks and show them, and show you how you actually can self-test that it fits you properly. If you have facial hair, shave it off now, please. Not when you think you can. People are really daft. So, as I said to Brad from Full Spectrum Survival, and he got it straight away, but a few of the other bearded preppers just don't get it. I said, well, Brad, what happens when he wanders into your place and knocks on the door? And he got it like that. That isn't the time. You haven't got time at that point to shave, especially if that person's an intruder, right? That's the time you want to have the mask on you, and you want to be able to put it on, and you want to have a good seal. I haven't shaved for a couple of days because we're having painting done. But if I go outside the house, this will be shaved, and I will have 2 N95s on my person. And I'll put them on if I'm within 2 meters of somebody and I think I need to put it on. I probably will be wearing it all the time going into and out of work. We travel by our own car. Hopefully Kitty hasn't got sick today. It's highly unlikely. We're going to see a similar probably caseload that China's seen. We're probably going to see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20, 30, 40. This is a major problem. 100, 200, 1,000, 3,000, and then upwards. How upwards? I don't know. Nobody knows. It's a guess. So all these people are telling you this is the end of everything and this will be martial law on the streets. There's no need for martial law in a pandemic. People don't go around breaking into occupied places very much in a pandemic. They're frightened of death. Okay? So get a sense of proportion. Don't panic. But my phased response, and I owe it to you to tell you, is right now we're in voluntary lockdown, quarantine. Quarantining ourselves from our family, quarantining ourselves from our neighbours, quarantining ourselves from yoga, quarantining ourselves from a whole bunch of things. I don't want people around me who might be infectious. Hi Becky. It's the Bad Terrier 2020 production.